Was Chris what's really alone? Exploring why people think Chris might not have acted alone. Something about the Chris Watts case feels wrong. On August 13th, 2018, in a quiet Colorado suburb, a pregnant mother and her 2 young daughters vanished. Chris Watts, the husband and father, stood in front of news cameras, pleading for their safe return. His voice was steady, his face calm, too calm for a man whose family was missing. Within days, the truth came out. Chris confessed to killing his wife, Shanann, and their girls, Bella, age 4, and Celeste, age 3. He's now serving life in prison without parole. Case closed, right? Not so fast. For years, people, ordinary folks, true crime fans, even some experts, have been digging into this case, picking apart, asking one haunting question. Did Chris Watts really do this all by himself? The timeline is impossibly tight. The way he acted afterward, so composed, so calculated, raises red flags. Then there are the shadows and surveillance footage, the deleted text messages, the pieces of this puzzle that just don't fit. Was there someone else involved? Someone who helped him plan it? Someone who was there that night? This isn't just about a crime. It's about a mystery that refuses to die. Tonight, we're going to walk you through every detail, every theory, every doubt. We'll look at what the police said, what Chris admitted, and what the evidence might be hiding. By the end, you'll be asking yourself, could someone else have walked away from this crime, leaving Chris to take the fall? Buckle up, because this story will make you question everything. The official narrative, what police and Chris claimed. Let's start with a story the police and prosecutors laid out, the one that put Chris Watts behind bars for life. On the morning of August 13th, 2018, in Frederick, Colorado, Chris Watts murdered his pregnant wife, Shanann, who was 15 weeks along with their unborn son, Nico. According to the official report, he strangled her in their home at 2825 Saratoga Trail. Then, in an act that's almost too horrific to comprehend, he loaded Shanann's body into the back of his work truck, along with his 2 daughters, Bella, just 4 years old, and Celeste, only 3. He drove 40 miles to a remote oil site, Server 319, where he worked for Anadarko Petroleum. There, he buried Shanann in a shallow grave, barely covered by dirt. Then, he smothered his daughters and dropped their tiny bodies into separate oil tanks, submerging them in crude oil. After all that, Chris went to work. Yes, he actually clocked in, texted his co-workers, and acted like it was just another day. Hours later, he came home, played the part of a worried husband, and reported his family missing. He even went on TV, standing on his front porch, begging for Shanann, Bella, and Celeste to come home. His voice barely cracked as he said, "If you're out there, please come back." But the facade didn't last. Within 48 hours, investigators noticed holes in his story. He failed a polygraph test miserably. His calm demeanor started to crumble under questioning. At first, he tried to pin it on Shanann, claiming she killed the girls and he killed her in a rage. But that story didn't hold up. Eventually, he confessed to all 3 murders, or so he said. On November 6, 2018, Chris pleaded guilty to 9 charges, including 5 counts of first-degree murder. The judge handed down 5 life sentences without parole. The media called it a slam-dunk case. The evidence was overwhelming. Surveillance footage, phone records, his own words. But here's where it gets messy. Why did Chris change his story so many times? Why didn't he demand a lawyer right away? And how could one man pull off such a complex crime? 3 murders, a cleanup, a 40-mile drive, and body disposal, all in a few hours without slipping up once. No blood in the house. No neighbors hearing a thing. No co-workers noticing he was off. It feels too perfect, too clean. Could one person really do all this alone? Or is there more to the story we haven't been told? The timeline of lies. What doesn't add up? To understand why so many people think Chris Watts might have had help, we have to break down the timeline. It's one of the biggest reasons this case feels off. Shanann Watts landed in Denver from a business trip at 1:18 a.m. on August 13th, 2018. Her friend Nichol Kessinger dropped her off at home around 1:48 a.m. That's the last time anyone saw her alive, except Chris. Fast forward to 5:27 a.m., neighbor security footage catches Chris backing his work truck into the garage. Investigators believe that's when he loaded the bodies of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. He then drove 40 miles to the Survey 319 oil site, arriving around 6:45 a.m. In the next hour or so, he dug a shallow grave for Shanann, climbed 2 oil tanks to dispose of his daughter's bodies, and covered his tracks. By 8 a.m., he was working like nothing happened. Later that morning, he texted co-workers, made small talk, even searched online for vacation spots. Let's do the math. From 1:48 a.m. to 5:27 a.m., that's about 3.5 hours to commit 3 murders, clean up any evidence, and load the bodies into the truck. Then a 45-minute drive to the oil site, followed by digging a grave by hand in hard soil and disposing of 2 small bodies in oil tanks, which required climbing ladders and opening heavy hatches, all before starting his workday. Forensic investigator, this timeline is possible, but it's razor thin. Digging a grave, even a shallow one, could take 30 minutes or more. Climbing those tanks, handling the bodies, it's physically demanding and time-consuming. One misstep, one delay, and the whole plan falls apart. And yet, Chris pulled it off without a hitch. No blood was found in the house, despite strangling Shanann. No neighbors heard screams or struggles. No co-workers noticed him sweating, shaken, or out of breath. His truck didn't break down. He didn't get stuck in traffic. Everything went perfectly. Online, true crime fans on Reddit and YouTube have obsessed over this. A 2019 post on our /Shanann Watts asked, "How could one guy do all this in 3 hours without messing up?" Some say he must have planned it down to the second. Others aren't so sure. Was Chris what a criminal mastermind, capable of executing this with surgical precision? Or did he have someone helping him? Someone who knew the oil site, someone who could keep things quiet? The timeline raises more questions than answers, and it's just the start. Shadows in the surveillance footage. One piece of evidence keeps coming up in every online discussion about this case: the neighbor security footage. At 5:27 a.m. on August 13th, it shows Chris Watts backing his truck into the garage. That's when police believe he loaded the bodies. But it's what's not clear in the video that has people talking. Some true crime sleuths swear they see a shadow moving near the truck. Not Chris, someone else. A figure, maybe darting out of sight. The footage is grainy, shot in the dark, so it's hard to tell what's real. Is it a person? A tree swaying in the wind? A trick of the light? YouTube videos breaking down this footage have millions of views. One commenter wrote, "That shadow is proof someone else was there. No way it's just a coincidence." Others disagree, saying it's nothing but pixel noise or reflection from the truck's headlights. Video forensic specialists. Low-resolution footage at night is notoriously unreliable. Shadows can look like anything: people, animals, objects. Without clearer evidence, you can't conclude there's a second person. Police analyzed the video frame by frame and found no definitive sign of anyone else. The neighbor who shared the footage didn't report seeing anyone with Chris. But the internet won't let this go. Some theorize an accomplice was in the truck, staying low to avoid the camera. Others think someone was inside the house, helping move the bodies before Chris drove off. This shadow has become a symbol of the case's uncertainty. It's vague enough to fuel endless debate, but not clear enough to prove anything. Why does it keep pulling us in? Maybe because it's easier to believe someone else was there than to accept one man could do this alone. Could that shadow be the key to an accomplice? Or is it just a distraction from the hard truth? The deleted phone data. If the timeline and shadows raise questions, the deleted phone data throws gasoline on the fire. Both Chris Watts and his mistress, Nichol Kessinger, deleted text and call logs before police got their hands on their phones. Nichol told investigators she erased messages from Chris to protect her privacy. She was in a secret affair with a married man. Nobody wants that exposed. Chris, on the other hand, claimed he didn't know why he deleted his messages. Convenient, right? Investigators managed to recover some of the data. It showed Chris and Nichol texting and calling constantly in the weeks leading up to the murders. They talked about their relationship, their future, even apartment hunting. But what about the messages they couldn't recover? Nichol also raised eyebrows with her internet search history. Before contacting police, she looked up Amber Fry, the mistress in the Scott Peterson case, a man who killed his pregnant wife. Was Nichol worried she'd be painted as the next Amber? Or was she covering something bigger? Digital forensics expert. Deleting text doesn't always mean someone's guilty. People panic, especially when they're caught in a scandal. But in a murder case, it looks suspicious. Those missing messages could have been harmless, or they could have held the key to the truth. Online, the speculation is relentless. Reddit threads like r/true crime discussion have users asking, what was in those texts? Were they planning something? Some believe Nichol knew about the murders, or worse, helped plan them. Others think she was just a woman caught in a bad situation, trying to save face. The deleted data creates a black hole in the case. It's a gap where anything seems possible, innocent explanations or something much darker. Why would two people delete their messages at the same time? What were they so desperate to hide? The mysterious shadows theory. The shadows don't stop at the truck. Some people point to activity inside the Watts home that night. A neighbor told police they saw lights flickering in the house around 4 a.m., about an hour and a half before Chris loaded his truck. What were those lights? Was someone moving around inside? Could it have been an accomplice, helping Chris prepare for what was coming? Or was it just a timer, like the police suggested, turning lights on and off automatically? The neighbor's report is vague. They didn't see anyone specific, just lights going on and off. No other neighbors reported anything unusual. But online, true crime fans have run with this detail. A post on r/Shanann Watts asked, if lights were on at 4 a.m., was someone else in the house with Chris? Some theorize an accomplice was there, helping subdue Shanann or the girls. Others think it could have been Chris himself, pacing, planning, or cleaning up. But why would he need lights on at all? The house was his. He knew it like the back of his hand. Criminologists. Details like flickering lights are catnip for conspiracy theorists. In high-profile cases, people see patterns where there's just randomness. Without more evidence, it's hard to say those lights mean anything at all. This shadows theory, both in the house and by the truck, feeds into our need to find answers. It's easier to imagine a second person than to believe Chris did this alone, in the dark, with no mistakes. But is it real evidence, or just our minds filling in the blanks? What do those lights really tell us? Are they a clue to an accomplice, or just another dead end? The dog that didn't bark. There's a detail in this case that's easy to overlook, but hard to ignore. The Watts family dog, Dieter. He was in the house that night, locked in his crate. Dieter was a small, yappy dog, the kind that barks at strangers or loud noises. Yet, no neighbors heard a peep from him on August 13th. Think about that. A violent struggle. 3 murders in a quiet house. And the dog stays silent? If someone else was there, someone Dieter didn't know, wouldn't he have gone crazy? Dog behaviorists. Dogs like Dieter are territorial, especially at night. A stranger in the house would likely trigger barking, unless they were familiar. His silence points to no one unexpected being there. Online, this has sparked heated debates. Some say Dieter's silence means Chris acted alone, no strangers to set off the dog. But others have a different theory. What if the accomplice was someone Dieter knew? A family friend, a co-worker, maybe even Nichol Kessinger? There's no evidence Nichol ever met Dieter, but the idea persists. Some Reddit users argue that if Dieter didn't bark, It could mean the accomplice was someone close to the family. Others point out that Chris could have calmed Dieter or kept him far from the crime scene. This detail pulls you in two directions. On one hand, it supports the idea that Chris was alone. Nobody else set off the dog. On the other, it opens a door to questions about who Dieter might have trusted. Why didn't Dieter bark? Is it proof Chris acted solo, or a hint that someone familiar was there? The role of Nichol Kessinger, just a girlfriend? Nichol Kessinger is the lightning rod of this case. She was Chris Watt's mistress, a co-worker at Anadarko Petroleum who started a romantic relationship with him in June 2018, just 2 months before the murders. Nichol told police she thought Chris was separated, that his marriage was over. She said she had no idea Shanann was pregnant with Nico. Their texts show a whirlwind romance. Talk of future together, secret meetings, even plans to move in together. But when the murders came to light, Nichol's story got complicated. She deleted texts from Chris before going to police. She searched for Amber Fry, the mistress in another infamous murder case. She waited a day before coming forward. To many, these look like the actions of someone with something to hide. Criminal profiler. Nichol's behavior, deleting texts, researching Amber Fry, shows she was scared of being dragged into this. It's not proof of guilt, but it's not a good look either. Her phone records show she wasn't near the Watts' home or the oil site that morning. She passed a polygraph test and cooperated with investigators. Police cleared her as a suspect. But online, especially on Reddit's r/Shanann Watts, people aren't convinced. Some say Nichol knew about the murders, maybe even helped plan them to free Chris for their new life. Others think she was just a woman in love, blindsided by a monster. Her deletion of texts remains the biggest sticking point. What was in those messages? Were they just flirty exchanges, or something more incriminating? Nichol's role raises a bigger question. Could Chris have been protecting her? Did he take the fall alone to shield someone he cared about? Or is she just a convenient scapegoat for those who can't believe one man could do this? The curious case of Jim. Who is he? If Nichol Kessinger is the main focus of accomplice theories, there's another name that pops up in online discussions: Jim. Some claim Nichol mentioned a friend named Jim who might have been involved in the murders. Here's the catch. There's no hard evidence of Jim in the case. The 2,000-page discovery file doesn't mention him. Police never identified a Jim as a suspect or witness. The name seems to have started on social media, possibly from a misheard interview or a rumor that took on a life of its own. Reddit threads like, "Who is Jim in Watt's case?" have thousands of comments. Some users speculate he was a friend of Nichol's who helped Chris at the oil site. Others think he's a complete fabrication, a ghost born from the internet's obsession with this case. True crime journalist. Jim is a classic example of how rumors spread in true crime communities. Without a single document to back it up, it's likely just noise. But it shows how desperate people are for answers. Why does the Jim theory persist? Maybe it's because the idea of an unknown accomplice feels more plausible than Chris doing this alone. Or maybe it's the allure of a mystery man, someone who slipped through the cracks. Could there be a Jim out there, someone we've overlooked? Or is this just another wild theory with no legs? Friends, neighbors, and witnesses, what they noticed. The people closest to the Watts family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, play a big role in this story. Shanann's friend Nicole Atkinson was the first to sound the alarm. By 8 a.m. on August 13th, she was worried. Shanann wasn't answering texts, missed a doctor's appointment, and left her car and purse at home. Nichol called the police, sparking the welfare check that unraveled everything. Neighbors reported nothing unusual that night. No screams, no strange cars, no loud noises. One neighbor, Nate Trinistick, provided the crucial security footage of Chris' truck. Another mentioned those flickering lights at 4 a.m., but nothing concrete. Neighbor, everything seemed normal. Chris was just Chris. Quiet, friendly, nothing out of the ordinary. Co-workers at Anadarko Petroleum said the same. Chris showed up to work on time, chatted like usual, and gave no hint of what he'd done. But could they have missed something? Online, some argue the neighbors and co-workers overlooked a second person. With so many security cameras in the neighborhood, it seems unlikely someone could have slipped in and out unnoticed. But what if the accomplice was already inside, or used a route the cameras didn't catch? Reddit users have questioned why no one saw anything suspicious. How do you miss a murder in a quiet suburb? One post asked. Others point out that Chris' normal behavior might have been a deliberate cover, possibly for someone else. The witnesses paint a picture of a crime that happened in plain sight, yet left no trace. Did they miss a clue? Or is there silence proof that Chris was alone? What FBI profilers think about accomplices in family murders. Family annihilators, people who kill their entire families, are a rare breed. FBI profilers have studied cases like this for decades, and they say these killers usually work alone. The motive is often personal: financial ruin, a failing marriage, or, in Chris' case, a desire to escape his life for a new one with Nichol Kessinger, former FBI profiler. An accomplice in a family murder is rare. It's a deeply personal crime, and bringing in someone else risks exposure. Chris' affair and his need to start over fit the profile of a lone actor. Profilers point to Chris' behavior, his flat affect, his ability to lie convincingly, as typical of a family annihilator. He didn't show signs of coordinating with someone else, like cryptic phone calls or nervous glances. His confession, though inconsistent, focused only on himself. But not everyone agrees. Some online sleuths argue that Chris' calm demeanor suggests he wasn't alone. Could an accomplice have taken some of the emotional weight, letting him stay so composed? Profilers also note that family annihilators often consider suicide after crime. Chris didn't, which is unusual but not unheard of. Does that mean he had help, or just that he's an outlier? The FBI's perspective is clear. Chris fits the mold of a solo killer. But molds can be broken. Could this be the exception? Chris, what psychological state? Could he really have done this alone? Chris, what didn't seem like a killer? Friends and family describe him as quiet, reserved, even shy. A devoted dad who coached his daughter's soccer games. A husband who supported Shanann's career. No criminal record, no history of violence. So how does someone like that commit such a horrific crime? Forensic psychologist. Chris may have been a covert narcissist, charming and passive on the outside, but capable of extreme detachment. That could explain how he planned and executed this alone, without breaking under the weight of it. His behavior after the murders is chilling. He gave TV interviews with barely a flicker of emotion. He texted co-workers about mundane things. He even looked up song lyrics about love and loss, as if scripting his own story. Strangely, Chris has received fan letters in prison, some from women praising his calmness, or even expressing romantic interest. This suggests a manipulative personality, someone who could control how others saw him. But does it mean he could orchestrate a triple murder alone? Some online theories suggest his calm facade was only possible because someone else shared the burden. Maybe an accomplice handled part of the crime, letting Chris focus on playing the innocent husband. Others say his detachment proves he didn't need help. He was cold enough to do it all himself. What drove Chris Watts? Was he a calculating monster, or did someone else help pull the strings? Law enforcement's response to accomplice theories. The Frederick Police Department and Colorado Bureau of Investigation have been clear from the start. Chris Watts acted alone. They found no evidence, DNA, fingerprints, or otherwise, of anyone else at the crime scene. The 2,000-page discovery file, released in November 2018, lays it all out. Phone records, surveillance footage, witness statements, all pointing to Chris. No second suspect ever emerged. Detective, we looked at every angle. The evidence was overwhelming. Chris Watts committed these murders alone. But online, some argue the police moved too fast. With Chris confessing so quickly, did they overlook other possibilities? Could they have missed subtle clues, like an accomplice who stayed out of sight? Reddit threads like r/true crime discussion suggest law enforcement was eager to close the case, especially with public pressure mounting. Others defend the investigation, pointing to the mountain of evidence against Chris. The police stand by their findings. But when a case is this shocking, it's natural to wonder, did they check every corner? Or did someone slip through the cracks? Alternative suspects and internet sleuth theories. Beyond Nichol Kessinger and the mysterious Jim, online sleuths have thrown out other possible accomplices. A co-worker at Anadarko, a neighbor who knew the family, even a random stranger with a grudge. None of these theories have solid evidence, but they keep the conversation alive. One detail stands out. A text Chris sent to a co-worker the night before the murders, telling them not to visit the Survey 319 site the next morning. Was he making sure he'd be alone to dispose of the bodies? Or was he covering for someone else? The co-worker told police it was a routine message, nothing suspicious. But online, some see it as a clue. Why was he so specific about keeping people away? A Reddit user asked, "True crime author, the internet loves to fill in the blanks with theories, but without physical evidence or credible witnesses, these ideas are just stories we tell ourselves." Other theories suggest someone from Shanann's work, a multi-level marketing company called Lavelle, might have been involved. Maybe a business rival, but there's no record of any threats or conflicts. These alternative suspects keep the case alive online, but they're long on speculation and short on facts. Could there be a hidden player we've missed? Or are we chasing ghosts? Behavior after the crime. Was he covering for someone? Chris Watts' behavior after the murders is almost as shocking as the crime itself. Hours after killing his family, he was texting co-workers about work schedules. He searched online for vacation spots and song lyrics. He stood in front of news cameras, pleading for his family's return, with barely a tremble in his voice. How does someone do that? How do you kill your wife and kids, hide their bodies, and then act like it's just another Monday? Criminal behaviorist. Chris' composure suggests a calculated effort to avoid suspicion. Covering for an accomplice would have added stress, making cracks in his facade more likely. Some online sleuths argue his calmness means he wasn't carrying the full weight of the crime. Maybe an accomplice handled part of it, letting Chris focus on playing innocent. Others say his behavior is textbook psychopathy, cold, detached, and self-serving. Reddit users have pointed to small details. Chris glancing off camera during his TV interview, as if checking for someone. Was he signaling an accomplice, or just nervous? His actions paint a picture of a man in control. But was he protecting someone else, or just himself? Could anyone stay that calm without help? The confession letters from prison, do they reveal the whole truth? While in prison, Chris Watts wrote letters to author Shanann Cadle, published in her 2019 book, Letters from Christopher. He described the murders in chilling detail. How he strangled Shanann, how he smothered Bella and Celeste, how he felt nothing afterward. He claimed he acted alone, driven by his desire to be with Nichol Kessinger. But the letters are oddly selective. He's vague about the exact timeline, glossing over key moments like the cleanup or the drive to the oil site. True crime writer. Prison confessions are often a mix of truth and manipulation. Chris might be leaving out details to protect someone or to shape how the world sees him. Online, some believe he's hiding an accomplice's role. A Reddit post asked, why is he so specific about some things but dodges others? Others argue the letters are proof he acted alone, since he takes full responsibility. The letters are a window into Chris' mind, but they don't tell the whole story. Are they a complete confession, or is he still holding something back? Polygraph test analysis. What did he really reveal? On August 15, 2018, Chris Watts took a polygraph test and failed spectacularly. His heart rate spiked, his breathing faltered, and his answers fell apart. At first, he stuck to his story. Shanann killed the girls and he killed her in a rage. But under pressure, he admitted to all 3 murders. Polygraph expert. Chris' physiological responses showed deception, but nothing clearly pointed to an accomplice. His stress seemed tied to his own guilt, not covering for someone else. Online, true crime fans dissect the polygraph footage, available in the Discovery file. Some say his shifting stories, blaming Shanann, then confessing, suggests he was protecting someone. Others think he was just scrambling to save himself. The test exposed Chris' lies, but it didn't reveal everything. Could he have been hiding an accomplice's role? Or was his panic all about his own actions? What did that polygraph really show us? Is it the full picture, or just part of it? Redacted Discovery documents. What's missing? The 2,000-page Discovery file, released in November 2018, is a goldmine for true crime fans. It includes police reports, phone records, text messages, and more. But some pages are blacked out, redacted to protect privacy or sensitive information. Those redactions are a breeding ground for theories. Online, people speculate about what's hidden. Missing phone logs? A witness statement that didn't make the final report? Evidence of someone else? Legal analyst. Redactions are common in big cases. They protect unrelated parties or ongoing investigations. There's no evidence these redactions hide an accomplice, but the lack of transparency fuels doubt. Reddit threads ask, what's in those blacked out pages? Why can't we see everything? Some believe the police withheld clues that could point to another person. Others think it's just routine bureaucracy. The Discovery file gives us a lot, but not everything. What's under those black bars? Is it irrelevant or the key to an accomplice? The role of the media. Did they rush to judgment? From the moment Chris Watts confessed, the media ran with a story. A monster who killed his family. Documentaries, like Netflix's American Murder in 2020, focus on his guilt, painting a clear picture of a lone killer. Shanann's family wasn't happy. They felt the media sensationalized the tragedy, turning their pain into entertainment. Sandra Zusek, Shanann's mother. The media made it about him, not our Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. They deserved better. Some online sleuths argue the media rushed to close the case, ignoring accomplice theories to sell a simpler story. By focusing on Chris, did they overlook other angles? Media critic. The media loves a villain. Chris was an easy target. Guilty, confessed, done. But that focus might have drowned out questions about other possibilities. The evidence against Chris is overwhelming, but the media's narrative left little room for doubt. Did they jump the gun? Or was the story always as simple as it seemed? What would a second investigation look like? If the Watts case were reopened today, what would it look like? New forensic tools could re-examine the oil site for missed DNA or fibers. Advanced digital forensics might recover more deleted texts. Investigators could re-interview key players, like Nichol Kessinger or Chris co-workers. Criminal investigator. A new investigation would dig deeper into physical evidence and digital trails. But without a strong lead, it's unlikely to change the conclusion. Chris acted alone. Online, true crime fans push for a second look. Some want Nichol's phone records rechecked. Others want the oil tanks tested again for trace evidence. But police say there's no reason to reopen the case. Chris confessed, and the evidence backs him up. Still, the idea of a fresh investigation is tempting. Could modern technology find something new? Or would it just confirm what we already know? What would it take to prove an accomplice? Or rule one out for good? Final thoughts. Was Chris Watts really alone? Or did someone walk away free? The Chris Watts case is a wound that won't heal. A family destroyed. A community shattered. A nation left asking, how could this happen? We spent hours digging through the evidence. The timeline, the shadows, the deleted texts, the silent dog. We've looked at Nichol Kessinger, the mysterious Jim, and every theory the internet has to offer. The evidence points to one man, Chris Watts, acting alone. But those doubts linger. The timeline is so tight. The shadows are so vague. The redactions, The deleted messages. They leave just enough room to wonder. Was someone else there that night? Did Chris take the fall to protect them? Shanann's brother, Frank or Zasek? Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico were our everything. Their love is what keeps us going, not his lies. The accomplice theories persist because this crime is so hard to grasp. It's easier to imagine a conspiracy than to accept one man's betrayal. But sometimes, the simplest answer is the hardest one to swallow. Chris Watts is in prison for life. His family is gone forever. And the questions, they're still here, haunting us. Did someone walk away free? Or was Chris Watts really alone? We may never know the whole truth, but we'll always remember Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico, their lives, their love, their light.